Day number 5 of the SG World Cup group stages. I've been recording for the longest time here, as I've done 3 of these recaps now back to back. It's Latvia against SG World, the biggest game of Group B we have had so far in the tournament. And also, just because now I'm finally able to catch up with the current situation of the tournament as it stands at the very moment I'm recording this. In this video, I'll also be able to go over some statistics for the teams, for the players. But we start here in Group B. It was Latvia against SG World. And if you take a look here, right before SG World's game-tying goal, it was all Latvia up until this point. This is the first shot on goal for Team SG World. And also something you need to know about this matchup is both of these teams did not have a loss. Also, this goal right here is absolutely nasty, that little spinner. But as I said, both teams, here Latvia ties it up, both teams, not a single loss before these games. And these were also the last games of the tournament for Latvia. SG World still has 4 games remaining after these. It just means that SG World needs 3 points here to guarantee that if they win all the rest of their games as well, they will capture that number 1 spot in the group. If Latvia is able to get 4 points, that guarantees them the top of the group. So obviously, huge games. It was 2-2 in the third period, and here Latvia is able to score an absolutely huge goal right there. They're up 3-2, but then this penalty. A cross-checking penalty. Honestly, cross-checking penalties are very rare in this game. And of course, on the power play. On the power play, it is the SG World. And the beautiful puck movement, by the way, to the back door. And it's a hat trick. So this game went to overtime. And honestly, it was already a pretty good result for the Latvians. They lose it here. Kapusta puts it in. And SG World wins game number 1 in overtime. But remember, as I said, Latvia needed 4 points here. So just the fact that they got that 1 in that first game means that they just need to win this second game to get that number 1 spot in the group, and that they start off strong. And not just strong, they start off real strong. 2-0. And look at this. It's the third period. During this matchup, we had some rough disconnection issues and issues on the EA server side where these teams just weren't able to even start a game for the longest time. But third period, and what these teams had agreed on is because the previous game had disconnected during the second intermission, the teams agreed to play the first period and then 5 minutes of the second period, leading this game going into this last part of the game. But then it's 2-1, and then the crazy thing that happens next is that they disconnect once again. They disconnect again, and they have to restart. So unfortunately, with our broadcast, we couldn't keep going because it was taking so long for them to be able to match up again. So we just skipped and moved on during this crucial game in Group A. And obviously, because we did, SG World tied it up. So this game went to overtime. And this is OT already. But the unfortunate part for the Latvians is the fact that even if and when they won this game, the series is a split. So 3 points each, and SG World now just has to win the rest of their games, which obviously they are still facing Great Britain as well as Slovakia. So there's 4 games that you have to take the full 12 points out of. Now moving on to... Oh, I have the wrong teams there. Well, that's not good. It's also posted up on the Sports Gamer YouTube channel already. All right, we'll let that one slide. We have Great Britain against Austria, another Group B matchup. And these two, the bottom two teams in the group at this point. So this was not played on broadcast, which also we can turn the volume on for these games for you guys. Both teams scored early on. It was 1-1. Austria scored the second goal, and then they scored the third goal. So Austria up 3-1 already, and it was looking like that was going to be the score going into the second intermission, but no. Great Britain scored right there before the buzzer, and then in the third period, they scored a couple more goals. And all of a sudden, the 3-1 lead that Austria had in this game, it just melts away. And this game ends 6-3, which momentum completely shifted. And Great Britain was able to win that one in the third period. Second game, once again, it was Austria scoring first. But then we had the game tied, but then Austria scored again to have the lead. But then Great Britain scored again. And we went to overtime. And here, Mr. Captain Austria, Felix, scores. And they win the second game in OT. So we have the last Group B game of the day. It was Slovakia against France. And this game, this would have been an interesting game to call, honestly. We saw Slovakia just really putting on the offense in both of these games. So Slovakia was able to win this first game with the score of 4-2. We went into the second game, and here we don't have to show the whole thing, but Slovakia takes a 7-0 victory here, which if we take a look at the standings here, so Group A, obviously, these teams, I recapped the video before this one was where we saw these teams play the last time. So Group A still the same situation, but now updated situation on Group B. Latvia, 10 games played. They've already played all of their group games. 26 points. They do have a guaranteed playoff spot, but what's interesting is SG World has enough games left to get 27 points, so they could overtake Latvia. But Slovakia, with those two big wins against SG France, they were able to climb all the way up tied with SG World here. So they still have games against one another in this tournament on Thursday. If Slovakia is able to win both games against SG World, they would actually guaranteed second place here. Of course, that's a tough task for Slovakia, but at the very least, they have some momentum going into the series. And Austria and France also have games against one another. So only one of these two teams can crack the top four, which is our spot. 4 teams that will make it into next year's SG World Cup if that is held. And also Great Britain technically has a shot at getting to that top 4 as well. So a lot of important games coming up in this Group B. As we move over to Group C, and we'll start off with the game that I don't have to talk about too much. I think I could just not talk about these games at all. Yeah, let's actually just do that. I'll just show you the results. Germany beats Denmark 7-0 in both games. Obviously Germany, one of the top teams. Denmark, one of the bottom teams in this group. We move on to the next game. So Norway against Germany. 2 very strong teams so far in this tournament. And what's at stake here is basically playoff spots. And Norway, in the first game, the Norwegian home game, this is probably, of course, with the Finland winning against Canada on the away server. That's probably the craziest thing about this tournament so far. But this Norway performance on their home server against Germany, a German team that is, in my books, a very clear favorite in this entire group. And just watch what kind of a clinic the Norwegians put up here. A lot of power plays as well. They just keep scoring on power plays here. Another goal here. 5-1, and then the power play. Once again, it's 6-1. And I mean, second period, and the game was 6-1. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous against Germany. The Germans, they start cooking a little bit here and going into the third, so they got back to 6-3, but then the tipper right there in front, it's 7-3. Not so long after, it's already 8-3, the power play once again, and then it's 9-3. 9-4, yes. Game number 1, Norway takes it 9-4, and as we're gonna be taking a look at the standings of this group at the end of the video, you'll see how big of a win this was for Team Norway. Obviously, second game, the Germans playing at home. They start off early with that 1-0 goal, and soon after they scored to make it 2-0. But they score here in the second period, make it 2-1, and then they score once again in the third period. They tie the game up at 2, and we're looking at a tie game going into the last 10 minutes, and Norway, they score once again, so they are actually up 3-2. They take a penalty towards the end of the game, and then disaster strikes, as I've said in a previous recap, and that disaster is a German disaster. The Germans, they tie it up. Norway just unable to quite hold on to that regulation win. And I mean, obviously, this game does go to OT, so they still get a point here. Unfortunately for the Norwegians, they lose the game in overtime here, so they do walk away with 4 points, which it could have been 6, but what a performance nonetheless. The Norwegians, they take home 4 points, a completely shocking result, as Germany only able to walk away with 2 in this matchup. We also had the bottom 2 teams go head to head in this group C, so it was Ukraine against Denmark, and unfortunately there was some situations going on with the Danish team, so this is actually game 2 already, what you're seeing. So Denmark, they had some, well, let's say they had some issues getting their squad together for the night, and they ended up having to forfeit their first game against Ukraine, but in the second game, they come back and they win the game. They were able to finally get some sort of a roster together to play this second one, and this game ends up being a 5-3 win for them. But interestingly enough, just because Ukraine also walks away with a win here, Ukraine is going to be group number 5th, and Denmark is going to be at the bottom, as we still have Switzerland against Czechia. And oh my, the drama in this series. Czechia, their last games of the tournament. At the time when we were calling these games, we were commentating, we did not realize what Czechia needs from this series. So from Czechia's perspective, they need 4 points. They need 4 points to guarantee a playoff spot. Now, what's interesting is from Team Switzerland's perspective, if they want to make the playoffs, these are not the last games they have. They will be still playing against Germany on Thursday. But if Team Switzerland wants to have any sort of chance to make the playoffs, they need 4 points also. And what happens in this series is this. So Czechia, first game, first goal, they score on the power play. Switzerland was in a lot of penalty trouble. They kept taking penalties. Here's a very unlucky goal. But here in the third period, Czechia is up by 2, but Switzerland scores. So Switzerland is within 1. Remember, as I said, Switzerland and Czechia both need 4 points. For either of these teams if they get 3 or less points in this series, basically impossible to make the playoffs. Unless something crazy happens between Ukraine and Norway, and Ukraine is able to take some points away from Norway, which, let's face it, it's not very likely. And if we assume that won't happen, then these teams need 4 points. So for Switzerland, it's already desperate. They're down in this first game. They need at least some points here. And with 35 seconds left from the point, the puck redirects in off a face gate. Now, if I showed you this and asked, is that a good goal? You would probably agree with me that that's a good goal. But somehow, it does not count. It does not count. I really do not understand how it's even possible not to count. But Czechia scores, makes it 3-1, and wins game 1. So, if we remember, as Czechia is up 1-0 in this last game as well. Both teams need 4 points. They need 4 points. Meaning, Switzerland is not getting 4 points. Switzerland is already practically out of the tournament. It's not completely over yet. If Switzerland wants to have any chance to make the playoffs, they have to win this one. And for Czechia, same thing. They need at least a point here. They need 1 point. And it's the third period. And the Swiss tie it up. It's alright though, right? Czechia, they are still holding on to this point. They just need to send this game to OT. Or win in regulation. Either way works. But the one thing they do not want is what happens next. As Switzerland throws it on. It's tipped in. And Switzerland has the lead. Switzerland is up 2-1. Now, there's 29 seconds left on this face-off. Czechia wins the face-off. Unfortunately for them, the puck goes to the neutral zone. But, here's the thing. 1, 2, 3. Team Switzerland has taken 2 penalties. It's a 5-on-3, and Team Czechia has pulled their goaltender. On top of all this, it's a 6-on-3 situation. You have 25 seconds on the clock, and the Czechs are going to break into the zone. They break into the zone perfectly. And what is going on? Team Switzerland, you've just allowed this man, Adam Mensik, Team Czechia center, Zovi, the biggest name on this Team Czechia team, Zovi, their center, number 61, Mensik, right there. The guy that has the puck right there in front of the net on the breakaway. With 22 seconds left, Czechia is on a 6-on-3. They need a point. They must take at least 1 point from this game. And he doesn't score. A massive save. But wait, here they come again. No. No. No, 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 and they go offside. And Switzerland and Czechia end up splitting the points. 3 points for each. And unless something crazy happens, unless something ridiculous happens at the Norway-Ukraine games, this means both of these two are gonna be out of the playoffs. 7 wins, 3 losses. Team Czechia, they're at 21 points. 21 points! And they're not gonna be making the playoffs. Norway has 16. They're gonna be facing Ukraine. If Norway gets those 6 points, they're gonna be going up to 22, overtaking Czechia. And then Germany just needs 1 point here. 1 point to get past Czechia. There's actually one other way Czechia could get in. If Germany loses both games to Switzerland, Switzerland goes from 15 points all the way up to 21 points. And I'm pretty sure if that were to happen, Czechia would be in front of Switzerland. So there is that option as well. And for Switzerland, they cannot get past Czechia in the standings. So their only hope is to beat Germany twice, make it past Germany, and hope Norway does not get the full points against Ukraine. So will be a very, very interesting Thursday for all of those teams. Let's take a look at some of the stats in this tournament so far. For Team Norway, Swaney, 22 goals, 15 assists, 37 points, leading the tournament. Winsy for Czechia, 34 points. Then we have the attackers for Team Germany, all of them within 1 point of each other. Actually, the top 9 players are the forwards for these three nations. So Germany, Norway, Czechia. Aiju also for Team Slovakia. He's up there, top 10 in points. The top scorer in all of Group B, actually. As for Group A, looks like Vattu and Nikke both have 17 points. So those are the top scorers from Group A thus far. For goalies, if we sort by save percentage here, it looks like the two Czechia goaltenders right up there in save percentage. But as I said, it looks like that's not gonna be enough for them to make the playoffs. Carlson here for Sweden, 2 games played, also at an 85 save percentage. Happy Mac, Lazan, all these guys also at over 80 save percentage. What a tournament we've had, as it looks like it will be Latvia joined by probably SG World. Slovakia still has a shot if they can beat SG World twice, but SG World is going to be the favorite to make the playoffs as the second team in Group B. They might even overtake Latvia there at the top. And then in Group C, it is looking like it's going to be Germany and Norway, but still, there's some things that could happen. If and probably when Czechia doesn't make the playoffs with these 21 points they have in this group, honestly, I'm pretty sad for Czechia. What a tournament they had. They only lost 2 games to Germany, 2 close games as well. And then the last game they were 7-2. They just needed a point. They needed 1 point from Switzerland. They weren't able to do it. Thursday is gonna be a massive day. We'll learn which 8 teams are going to the playoffs. But until then, I thank you all very much for watching once again. Hop on over to twitch.tv/sportsgamergg on Thursday, maybe on Friday, as well as the weekend. We'll have absolutely huge games. And on Sunday, we have the finals of the tournament.